We believe ourselves redeemers, avengers, saviors. We make war on those who oppose us, and they in turn make war on us. We dream of leaving our stamp upon the world.
An allegiance
sealed in blood. Justice
is forged in the shadows.
Assassin's Creed Shadows is finally here, and it has been quite the ride. Now, I could spend all day unpacking Ubisoft's, let's just say, unique promotion tactics, but today I'm focusing purely on the game itself. And yes, I promise this will be completely spoiler-free. Now look, I've played every Assassin's Creed game. You name it, I've experienced it. But before we dive into Shadows, we absolutely have to revisit what came before, because certain moments in Shadows just don't hit as hard unless you understand the bigger picture. And honestly, Ubisoft isn't gonna exactly explain it to you anytime soon, and they're not exactly known for clarifying their own lore for some magical reason. So if they're not gonna do it, I'll just do it myself.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Thousands of years ago, I'm talking hundreds of thousands, the world was ruled by a hyper-advanced civilization known as the Isu, or the first civilization. Depends on who you ask. They looked human, but were stronger, smarter, and lived way longer. The Isu created humanity through genetic engineering to serve as a slave race, controlling humans using powerful artifacts called Pieces of Eden, particularly the Apples of Eden. But eventually, humanity just had enough, and around 75,000 BC, two Isu human hybrids named Adam and Eve led humanity's first rebellion by stealing one of these apples. This sparked humanity's fight for freedom, but shortly after came a global disaster known as the Toba Catastrophe, a massive solar flare wiping out most of the Isu and humans alike. The surviving Isu eventually just faded away, leaving really only their technology behind, except for one, Juno. She survived digitally, becoming a manipulative force throughout history, influencing events from behind the scenes, including manipulating the Templars and Abstergo into actually creating the Animus. See, her ultimate goal was regaining physical form and enslaving humanity once again. Though she was eventually defeated in the comics, Assassin's Creed Uprising to be specific, her influence lingered, shaping the Assassin and Templar conflict forever. And speaking of Assassins and Templars, after humanity rediscovered Isu technology and ideals, two opposing factions emerged, one being the Hidden Ones, later becoming the Assassins, founded by Bayek and Ea in 47 BCE, fighting from the shadows for humanity's freedom. Guided by their creed, nothing is true but everything is permitted. And then you have the Order of the Ancients, later becoming the infamous Templar Order, seeking absolute control and order at any cost. Guided by their own oath, uphold the principles of our order, and all for that which we stand. Never share our secrets, nor divulge the true nature of our work. Do so until death, whatever the cost. This hidden war has raged for millennia, each side doing whatever it takes to win, even burning down entire cities to eliminate a single enemy. And just to emphasize how intense this conflict is, it's even crossing the other Ubisoft games, like Watch Dogs as an example. Remember Aiden Pierce? Yeah, he's the one who took down Oliver Guerrero, a major Templar figure from Assassin's Creed Black Flag. That's actually the reason why he never came back if you played that game. This war isn't obvious. Once you notice it, you can't unsee it, right? The Assassins and Templars are everywhere and nowhere, operating in total secrecy. If you see this logo, this insignia, this assassin sign, and this hidden blade, you know exactly what it means. They're coming for you, and they will find you. And that brings us directly into Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, this game revolves around two main characters, Naoe and Yasuke. One's a shinobi and the other's a samurai. Now, if you strip away their names and personalities, at their core, they represent two completely different playstyles, at least in my opinion. You see, Naoe plays like the classic Assassin's Creed games. Think Unity, Brotherhood, Black Flag. Stealth is the focus. You can't just charge in swinging. While she doesn't have an insta-kill enemies by default button, there is a setting to toggle that on, and I personally thought it was a really nice throwback to the older games. But then there's Yasuke. To me, he feels more like the modern Assassin's Creed experience. Stealth is optional, but brute force is where he shines. He's a tank, able to storm castles and take on entire armies, but all that power comes at a very serious cost. His movement is clunky. You can't parkour like Naoe, and you really feel it. And here's where it gets a little tricky, right? Because you don't get Yasuke right away. You spend a few hours with Naoe first, getting used to her agility. So when you finally switch to Yasuke, it feels weird, slower, and heavier. I assume this is the game's way of saying, no, Yasuke isn't a stealthy assassin. Stop trying. That said, though, the dual protagonist setup has its perks. You see, some missions feel way too hard for Naoe, but Yasuke, he can just cut his way through, and Ubisoft has done this before with the Fry twins, Jacob and Evie, in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, but the difference is that Jacob and Evie were both trained assassins from birth. They played almost the same. If you like Jacob, you weren't forced to switch to Evie to reach a certain area or complete a task. Naoe and Yasuke, though, it's the complete opposite. There are areas only one of them can reach, and while I get why Ubisoft did that, it does make you play as both. It's still kind of frustrating when all you want to do is just handle things your own way. Now, it's important to understand the state of the Brotherhood at large during Assassin's Creed Shadows that takes place in 1579, at least for me as far as I care, right? Because by this point, the Brotherhood was struggling hard. It was still alive, yeah, sure, in some regions like the Ottoman Empire. It was holding pretty strong, and if you didn't know, that was one of the most powerful assassin factions during this time period. But in places like Europe and China, they were losing ground fast. And as far as the Americas, it was still way too early for the Brotherhood to even have any real presence there. So we step into Shadows. I'm not exactly surprised that there isn't a strong assassin's presence. That's why you're not really fighting the Templars this time around, but instead a different group of enemies, ones that tie directly into Naoe's story, with Yasuke walking a similar path besides her. But here's what I really appreciate. Even though the story feels separate from the classic Assassins versus Templar conflict, it still matters. It actually impacts the bigger picture of the Assassin-Templar war. Now, I can't say how, because, well, spoilers, but just know that it does, right? And with the addition of multiple gameplay modes like canon mode and what I'm gonna call choose your own adventure mode, you can experience the story your way. I personally played in canon mode, which means all the major choices were already set in stone. And honestly, it made the cutscenes feel a lot more cinematic, like I was watching a full-on movie and I actually cared about what happened more. And you know what? I absolutely loved it. Seeing moments in history play out differently, like the death of Nobunaga, felt insanely cool. Oh, and apparently there are some romance options, which actually kind of annoys me when I think about it too much. You got a 1,000-year war going on between two factions nobody knows exists, fighting over artifacts that can shape the world as we know it. You want me to care if Yasuke gets to get spicy with some random asshat I could care less about? Yeah, no thanks, not for me. I'll stick with canon mode. But while the assassins might not be front and center, their presence, it's still felt. And the proof of that is that the hidden blade that Naoe cares. You know, sure, not everyone recognizes it, not everyone will, right? But for those who do, it strikes absolute fear into their hearts. And the first person you see completely baffled by it is none other than Yasuke himself. And it's interesting, right? Throughout the entire game, the way the two characters' paths intertwine and allow them to communicate was absolutely incredible. See, I've never actually been a fan of the RPG choose your own path style that the newer Assassin's Creed games have leaned into. Maybe that's because I care more about the canon storyline rather than whatever mix and match choices I'm forced to make. But the fact that Ubisoft included a canon mode, that to me is really fantastic. It solves two huge problems for me. First, if the game's story is bad, I can fully blame Ubisoft because I sacrificed my choices to experience the game as they intended. And second, I'm getting the story as it was envisioned, without dilution, and to me, that's huge. But the biggest problem regarding the story of Assassin's Creed and the thing it's trying to tell, and this is where I can really kind of understand the point of why is Yasuke in this, is the fact that you could make Yasuke any other character and the story would still flow, I guess to a certain degree, right? Because here's the thing, with every other Assassin's Creed game, at least to my knowledge, every single character has been completely made up and it's easy that way, especially if your lore has some resemblance in reality. Because the problem is when you choose a character that actually exists, you've just locked yourself. And I think that's why a lot of people don't like Yasuke. I don't think it has to do with any of the I'm gonna choose personalized choices that I've seen, right? Because I want this video to not get struck by YouTube. But I honestly believe that to me, it's because there's no need for him to be here. You could replace Yasuke with any other character, maybe swap around a few story bits fights in the game would still make sense. He's not a bad character, don't get me wrong. And the way he's proceeded in Assassin's Creed Shadows is good. But at the same time, I really do think that going forward, this should be the first time and last time Ubisoft decides to use an actual person, a real life person, as a main protagonist in Assassin's Creed. Because I think in the future, it's going to create one too many problems. But that could just be me personally. Now, here's the big question. Would you, the viewer, enjoy Assassin's Creed Shadows, especially if you weren't a big fan of Odyssey, Valhalla, or Origins, and have been craving that classic Assassin's Creed vibe we all grew up with? And honestly, yeah, I think you would. However, there's one important thing Ubisoft has continuously emphasized, and that's that Assassin's Creed Shadows is supposedly a return to what Assassin's Creed used to be, but having completed the game, I can confidently say Ubisoft isn't exactly telling you the truth. Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't a genuine return to form for the series. Instead, it's more like a subtle nod, a side eye to the original Assassin's Creed experience. You see, when playing as Naue, it genuinely feels like I'm transported back to the older games like Unity or Assassin's Creed 3, games where I had a blast sneaking around, carefully planning my moves, but then Yasuke enters the picture, clearly designed for players who prefer Ubisoft's newer RPG style of gameplay. Those who maybe aren't big on stealth and would rather rush into action and take their chances. But you know, if I had to pinpoint my biggest frustration, it's this nagging curiosity that I keep getting, and it's been happening since Origins, but it's that what would Shadows have looked like if we didn't have Naue or Yasuke separately, but instead a seamless fusion of both characters, or perhaps even if Ubisoft had just ditched the RPG mechanics entirely. Now, I get that some people love these RPG mechanics, but to me, they introduce problems Assassin's Creed really never had before. It's understandable though why some players would feel disillusioned enough to say, you know what, forget it, Assassin's Creed is dead, and I'm just gonna move on. And honestly, it makes me a bit nervous about the upcoming Black Flag remake, man. Because let's face it, if Ubisoft delivers a version of Black Flag that's bloated with RPG mechanics, that's completely disrespecting the spirit of the original, the backlash from fans would be absolutely enormous. And that's because Black Flag is held in the hearts of so many people. Like if we boot that game up, for example, and one of the biggest things that you notice is that Edward Kenway now has a skill tree, I would be just instantly pissed. It wouldn't be, oh, why can I? No, it's straight anger. But you know, I really hope that this is something that gets taken into consideration with future franchises and future versions of the Assassin's Creed series. But like I said, there's things that Shadows does well, and there's things that I wish it didn't have at all. But overall, Assassin's Creed Shadows, it may not exactly be the Assassin's Creed of my childhood. It's not Black Flag. It's not Assassin's Creed 3. It won't even be 1 or 2. It's not even Unity or Syndicate, but it is a way forward. And if this represents Ubisoft's vision for the future of the franchise, honestly, I think I can be okay with that. But you know, this is just my personal opinion. And I can't really sit here and tell you what's right or what's wrong, because this game is really going to be something that you have to experience for yourself in order to truly make your own opinion. But at the end of the day, this is the future of Assassin's Creed. And honestly, I think I'm okay with it.